Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second webinar of a series of webinars conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming strategic case study examinations happening in August 2023. And my name is Nick. I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes for tonight. So first things first, I'll be taking you through the technicalities pertaining to answering techniques because as an SCS student, you need to have a good understanding about how you're supposed to structure your answers because you need to spend some time to develop something called an answer plan. I will explain how you're supposed to do it. And if you develop answer plans properly, then you are increasing your chances of passing this SCS exam. So these things will be taught in the first part of tonight's session. And, combined with taking you through answering techniques, I will also highlight about time management techniques because most students who take up SCS exams end up failing the exam because they run out of time. And when that happens, students tend to provide incomplete answers. Remember that you are supposed to play the role of a senior finance manager who is reporting directly to the board members. So in such an environment, if you provide incomplete answers, if you're not providing well thought out recommendations to the board members, there's absolutely no way that you'd pass these exams. So it's of utmost importance that you manage your time appropriately. So I will be explaining all these things as part and parcel of answering technique. And if you practice these things before the exam and get it right at your exam, definitely you can pass the SCS examination. And these techniques, both answer planning as well as time management techniques, will be explained based on the mini mock. I will be taking you through the questions and answers of the mini mock. And whilst doing it, I will explain how we are supposed to develop answer plans and how we are supposed to manage your time. Okay. So before we get into the nitty-gritties, let me remind you about our schedule for the free SCS webinars conducted by TCS. So I hope you guys attended the first webinar where I explained an 8-week study plan. I explained as to what you're supposed to do in the upcoming 8 weeks. And as per the study plan, if you attended the first webinar, you would know this by now. As per the study plan, you just need to find 3 hours per week to attempt a mock. Just one single mock per week. I'm not asking you to do too much. I know for a fact that you guys are busy with your work, as well as you might be running your own businesses, you have family commitments. So you might find it extremely hard to find time to spend time for studies. So we have taken care of that. That's exactly why I've asked you guys to stick to a study plan. And if you do, it's just a matter of finding 3 hours on a weekly basis to attempt a mock per week. Everything else has been handled by us. So if you missed out on the first webinar, there's no problem at all because you can access the recorded versions of the version of the webinar via our website. And in tonight's session, I'll be taking you through answering and time management techniques. And I also want to remind you about the third webinar, which is happening on the 22nd of July, where I will be taking you through the comments made by the examiner, because you need to understand the mindset of the examiner. You need to understand what is required from you. So all these comments will be explained in depth. And on top of that, I will also highlight what you need to do to develop a high level of confidence at your exam, because as per the CIMA examiner, confident students end up passing the exam comfortably. So all these tips and hints will be provided to you. And at the very end, I will be taking you through the common reasons which leads to a failure. And for each of these reasons, I will be providing solutions. So the third webinar, which is happening on the 22nd of July, is extremely important as well. And I hope you'd attend the third webinar as well. Okay, so looking at answering technique. So when developing answers at your exam, what are you supposed to do? So first things first, let me talk about what students usually would do. So most students, what they do is they'll read the question or read the scenario, and right after reading the scenario and right after understanding the requirements, they start typing fully fledged answers. That is not the correct approach, because you need to spend some time to understand the requirements clearly. And on top of that, you need to spend some time to structure your answers or develop something called an answer plan. Okay. If you do not do it, what happens is, let's assume you read the question and straight away you started typing the answer. And halfway through, you realize that your answer has nothing to do with the requirement. So in such an environment, what most students end up doing is they end up deleting the answer, and they'll start typing the answers from scratch. And this leads to a lot of time wastage, and you'll be stressed when you're experiencing something like this, because in the back of your mind, you know that you are running out of time. So when you are stressed, it leads to panic. And when you experience panic, definitely you will not think properly, you will not think straight, you will be extremely pressurized. So in such an environment, there's a tendency for students to develop rushed answers. And rushed answers, when you do not spend enough time to plan your answers properly, then you can't improve the quality of your answer. So in order to avoid all these shortcomings, you have to stick to this answering technique. So first things first, what you need to do is, when providing answers, use appropriate headings and subheadings. So for each subtask, you need to come up with a heading, and within each subtask, if you feel that you need to further fraction out your answer or subdivide your answer, then utilize subheadings. Okay, so let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. So this is a mini mock which we have developed for the August session. So if you look at section number 1 or task number 1, there are 1, 2, and 3 subtasks. Okay, so for each subtask, I want you guys to develop a main heading. So main heading needs to be in bold and underlined format. And if you want to utilize subheadings, you are welcome to do it. And if you come up with subheadings, that needs to be in bold format. So for each subtask, you need to come up with a main heading, and each main heading needs to be in bold and underlined format. And if you are utilizing subheadings, it needs to be in bold format. So that's the first point which you need to remember. You need to utilize appropriate headings and subheadings, because as I've told you in the first webinar, the CIMA examiner is trying to replicate a real life corporate environment. So in a real life corporate environment, it's as if you are receiving an email from the CFO. So when responding to this email, you have to structure it appropriately. And the first step towards structuring your answer is coming up with headings and subheadings. Then when, under these headings and subheadings, how are you supposed to provide your answers? You are supposed to utilize paragraphs, which consists of 2 to 4 sentences. Okay. So whenever you are developing answers, the CIMA examiner is specifically saying or asking students not to come up with single-lined sentences. And on top of that, the CIMA examiner also asks students not to provide answers in bullet points or bullet form. Okay, so all these things needs to be avoided. Instead, you need to develop paragraphs, and when developing paragraphs per answer point, you need to develop a single paragraph. So let's assume that within your answer plan or answer structure, you have 9 valid points. If you have 9 valid points within your answer, you need to have 9 paragraphs of answers. So if you have 9 valid points within your answer structure or your answer plan, then you need to have 9 paragraphs. So there needs to be a paragraph per answer point. Why am I asking you to do this? Because the CIMA examiner wants you to develop answers in paragraphs, just like what you do at office. And on top of that, why am I asking you to come up with different paragraphs per answer point? because it's good to be, it's better to be in the good books of the person who is marking your paper. So when there is an appropriate structure, when you are coming up with a separate paragraph per answer point, it's extremely easy to mark. Although you are taking 3 hours to develop answers for your entire paper, a marker is only utilizing just 10 to 13 minutes per paper. Okay, so you are taking 3 hours to develop your answers, but the marker is just taking 10 to 13 minutes. So if they are to evaluate your answers easily, it's better to develop a paragraph per answer point. Okay, and talking about time management, so how are you supposed to utilize your time? You know for a fact that the paper in its entirety would consume 3 hours of your time, and your paper is divided into three main areas or three main tasks. So per task, the time allocation is 60 minutes. So what are you supposed to do within these 60 minutes? 1/3 of the time should be allocated towards reading the question and developing the answer plan, and 2/3 of the time should be allocated towards expanding your answer points or typing the fully fledged answer. Okay, so 1/3 of the time. So that means out of an hour, 1/3 of the time can be allocated towards reading the question and developing an answer plan. So take about 5 minutes to read through the entire question. Then you can take something like 25 to 30 minutes to develop something called an answer plan. After you had spent enough time to develop an answer plan, utilize the remaining minutes, which is something like 30 minutes, to type your fully fledged answer. So right after reading the question, do not try to type your fully fledged answer. Instead, spend some time to think and plan what you are going to write. And once you have a plan, when it comes to typing, your life becomes easy, because you cannot multitask, especially when you are under exam stress. Okay, you know for a fact that time is running out. You know for a fact that you need to come up with appropriate answers which are 100% aligned with the requirements. You need to spend some time to understand the requirement as well. So you need to allocate enough time to plan your answers. So 5 minutes to read the question, 25 minutes to develop an answer plan. I won't mind even if you take 30 minutes to develop answer plans, and the remaining time, which is 25 minutes or 30 minutes, can be allocated towards expanding your answer plan. Okay, and the expected typing speed is a minimum of 20 words per minute. If your typing speed is not up to par, there are so many free platforms out there which will help you increase or improve your typing speed. And when developing answer plans, first things first, you need to understand how much marks are allocated for each subtask. So as you can see in here, in this main task, section number 1, as I told you earlier, there are 3 main subtasks. And for each task, under each subtask, you will get a certain percentage. So this percentage gives you an indication about the mark allocation. So the total amount of marks allocated per task for SCS is 50 marks. So 25% of 50 marks is the mark allocation for subtask A. Then for subtask B, again, 25% of the marks are allocated. And for subtask C, 50% of the marks are allocated. So based on the mark allocation only, you can determine how many, you are supposed to determine how many points need to be there within your answer plan. Okay, so you have to be considerate about these weightages provided, because these weightages gives you an indication about how many marks are allocated. And once you understand how many marks are allocated for each subtask, then you know how many points you need to have within your answer plans. So as you can see, when developing answers, it's not about just blindly typing out answers. You are supposed to think about the mark allocations. Based on the mark allocations, you are supposed to develop answer plans. Based on your answer plans, you are supposed to come up with your fully fledged answers. Okay, and do not spend time on formatting, such as paragraph alignment. You won't get any marks for that. the only type of alignment, the only type of formatting which you need to focus on is with regards to using headings and subheadings and developing a paragraph per answer point, and a paragraph needs to have 2 to 4 line sentences. I've seen students when developing their answers, although I ask you guys to develop answers in paragraph format or come up with a paragraph per answer point, most students, what they do is they type out the entire answer within one single paragraph. So when you do that, you're making the life of the invigilator or the person who is marking your papers extremely hard, because this individual who is marking your paper will have to pick and select where correct answers are. That becomes extremely hard. That's a hard thing to do when you write the entire answer together. Instead, focus on developing a paragraph per answer point. And remember, it's always about the quality of the answer points or the answers which you have developed. Your mark allocations has nothing to do about the length of your answer. Just because you provide lengthy answers, if the quality is not up to par, if the requirements are not fulfilled appropriately, you won't get any marks. Okay, so these are certain points which you need to remember when developing your answer plans. So, okay, so when developing the answer plan, what are the steps which you need to adhere to? So, first things first, you are supposed to read the scenario. So, as you can see in here, your typical question would look something like this. You are receiving an email from your CFO, and there are certain information provided. And at the very end, there are reference material provided as well. So you need to read the entire thing to figure out what you are supposed to do. So you are supposed to read the scenario first. So I asked you guys to allocate something like 5 minutes to get this done. If your reading speed is not too good, I won't mind even if you allocate something like 8 minutes to read the entire question. Okay. Then after reading the scenario, you are supposed to plot the requirements into headings and subheadings. So as I told you earlier, per subtask, you need to come up with a heading. So as per requirement number 1, since there are 3 subtasks, you need to have 3 main headings, and each heading needs to be in bold and underlined formats. And within these headings, if you feel like you need to bring out, further faction out the answer, then you are welcome to utilize subheadings, and subheadings needs to be in bold format. And invest time to understand the requirements clearly, because if you do not understand the requirement clearly, if you rush this step, you will end up providing inaccurate answers or answers which are not aligned with the requirement. So invest some time to understand the requirement. I won't mind even if you rephrase the requirement in your own words in a shortened form, so that you can always refer back to it and keep reminding yourself what the requirement is. Okay. And after doing this, you are supposed to develop the answer plan, taking something like 25 to 30 minutes of your time. Okay. So when developing the answer plan, do it on the answer screen itself. Do not utilize the scratch pad, because if you develop the answer plan, let's assume you develop the answer plan in the scratch pad, and there are 9 valid points. But when expanding your answer plan, you miss out on one of the points which we have highlighted within your answer plan. So why would you end up in a situation like that? Why would you end up forgetting to mention a valid point which you have really thought about when developing the answer plan? So when you have to shift between the scratch pad and your answer screen, it leads to certain complexities as well as inefficiencies. So in order to avoid all these things, forget about the scratch pad. Although it's there, do not utilize it. Instead, develop your answer plan within the answer screen itself. And once you have the answer plan, then it's just a matter of, the last step is just a matter of expanding the points which are highlighted within the answer plan. So for each answer point, you need to come up with a paragraph of answer. Okay, so that's your answering technique. So before we move on to explaining how these techniques are implemented in a practical sense, let me tell you about what we offer at TCS. So I'm going to take you through the website. So this is the SCS page which I'm on. And if you want to check out the free content, simply click on this button and you'll be directed to the login page. And once you create a user account, you can access the recorded versions of the webinars which we have conducted for this for the August session. And on top of that, there is masterclass which you can access pertaining to SCS Mock 1 Task 1. And on top of that, you will also get your hands on the free mini mock and its suggested answer, as well as answer planning technique. There's a separate document which highlights answer planning technique that comes under the free content as well. So I ask you guys to go check out the free content. And let me talk about the courses which we are offering. We offer 3 main courses. The first one is the Essentials package. If you purchase this, you'll get your hands on the recorded versions of the webinars where we are highlighting the technicalities pertaining to the SCS exam. Then you'd also get your hands on the 5 mock exams with suggested answers and 4 pre-scene analysis videos, because the entire pre-scene, we have evaluated it under 4 different videos. So you'd get your hands on these 3 different services if you invest on the Essentials package, and it is priced at £99. And if you are a student who is coming through the CIMA general route, and if you had aced your OTQ exams, if you had not failed any of your OTQ exams, then simply go for the Essentials package, because if you had gotten really good marks for your OTQs, then it appears that you know your theory. So, and it appears that you are comfortable with self-learning. It appears that you can adhere to some type of a study plan on your own. So in such an environment, these are the essential services which you need to pass the exam. Then moving on to the value pack. Under the value pack, you get your hands on the material provided under the Essentials pack. And on top of that, you'll get your hands on something called the annotated pre-scene. So let me show you what this annotated pre-scene is about. So this is the same pre-scene document which you'd receive from CIMA. What we have done is we have gone a step further, and I've come up with different types of annotations throughout the pre-scene document, thereby summarizing or bringing out the most important information and summarizing the entire pre-scene. So rather than going through pages and pages of information, because at the SCS level, there's a lot of information provided about industry dynamics. So rather than having to, understand all these points and remember all these points, it's extremely easier for you guys to go through the annotations. And via the annotations, we have also highlighted any syllabus areas which are tested. And on top of that, the CIMA examiner usually hides certain hints within the pre-scene about typical scenarios which you'd be tested at your exam. So what we have done is, via these annotations, we have highlighted these possible exam scenarios as well. So if you go through this annotated pre-scene, you'd gain an in-depth understanding about the pre-scene document easily. And once you watch the 4 pre-scene analysis videos, you'd have an appropriate level of knowledge about all the information which appears within the pre-scene. You need not do anything else. You need not do your own research, come up with your own short notes. Everything can be avoided, because all these things are provided as part of the annotated pre-scene and the pre-scene analysis videos which we have conducted. And also under the value pack, you'd get your hands on the industry analysis slides. So this is what our set of industry analysis slides typically looks like. So it is divided into 4 main areas where we provide an industry overview. We explain the competitive landscape. We highlight the industry trends, as well as provide you with 2 real-world examples based on 2 real-life companies. So once you go through these set of slides, you'd gain an in-depth understanding about the industry dynamics. And as I told you earlier, at the very end, to real life companies, information have been provided so that you gain an in-depth understanding about the external dynamics. Because as a senior finance manager, when you are reporting to the board members, you need to have something called an outside-in approach when it comes to decision making. So when taking a decision, you have to always think about your external stakeholders, how each of these external stakeholders will be affected. And when arriving at a decision, you need to take the decision which best fits the needs of the most important stakeholders of the company. Okay, so that's why you need to have an understanding about the industry dynamics. So if you go through this set of industry analysis slides, you need not do any research about the industry. You can easily learn about what's happening within your chosen industry, and this will be extremely beneficial for you at the real exam. And you'd also get your hands on a set of financial analysis slides. So if you had gone through the pre-seen document already, you would have seen that the financial statements of your chosen company as well as its closest competitor have been provided. So you need not analyze these financial statements because we have done it for you. So as you can see, the SOPL, the statement of financial position, as well as the statement of changes in equity, all these financial statements have been evaluated. And at the very end, we have also conducted a ratio analysis, because at this stage, at the SCS stage, you need to understand about the profitability, the activity ratios, gearing, as well as liquidity ratios, which gives you an indication about the financial performance of your company as well as its closest competitor. So if you go through this set of financial analysis slides, you can easily understand about what's happening within the company in a financial sense. So a similar analysis has also been conducted for the closest competitor as well. So these are the type of study material which you'd get your hands on if you invest on the value package. And you'll also gain access to top 10 likely issue slides, which highlights the type of scenarios which can be tested at your real exam. And you'd have the ability to access case study familiarization kit. And we are running a tutor managed live chat via Twilio, so you can access that. And if you have any concerns, you can raise them then and there. And you'd also get your hands on the theory recaps of OTQ syllabus content, E3, P3, and F3. So once you go through these, OTQ syllabus recaps, you can easily brush up your knowledge in with regards to the theoretical content, which is tested under the SCS exam. So the value pack comes at £199. So if you are a student who is coming through the CIMA general route, but if you had struggled with your OTQ exams, especially your E3 and P3 exams, if you had failed your E3 or P3 OTQ exams, you need some support in the form of additional material. And it's better to have some type of mentoring, receive some type of mentoring from your tutors. So if you're coming through the CIMA general route, and if you had failed one or two of your OTQ exams, you have to go for the value pack. And looking at the premium package, it comes with all the material which comes under, or the study material which comes under the value package. Additionally, you'd get access to the online mock exam platform or the learning management system. So when attempting your 5 mock exams, you can do it under simulated exam conditions. Why is this important? Because, before you walk into the exam, you need to practice on your time management and answer planning techniques. So when you're doing it, if you try to do it on your own, there could be shortcomings. Okay, so in order to avoid all these shortcomings, the best thing to do is, attempt the mocks via our exam platform. So we have taken steps to ensure that we have developed an exam platform which is akin to the Pearson VUE system, which you use at your real exam. So it's better to practice under real exam conditions in order to be in a position to, champion your answer planning and time management techniques. So that comes under the premium package. And on top of that, you'll receive personalized marking and one-to-one tutor feedback on mocks 3, 4, and 5. So this is the best way to understand what your shortcomings are. So let me take you through, a feedback which I've provided for a previous student. So as you can see, on a paragraph by paragraph basis, I've provided feedback to the student, and throughout the paper, throughout the answer script, that's exactly what you can see. And at the very end, I've provided marks as well. So as you can see, this student only scored 70.5 marks. So because of that, this individual ended up failing the exam. And you can easily understand why you failed by looking at the success rate. So as you can see, the student had done an extremely good job when it comes to requirement number 2 or task number 2, because the success rate is above 54%. Why 54%? Because you are supposed to score 80 marks out of 150. That's 54%. So if you have gained more than 54% for each and every subtask, we have highlighted it in yellow. So when right after receiving feedback, you will receive feedback once you attempt the mock via the exam platform. Within 48 hours, you will receive tutor feedback. And once you receive tutor feedback, after going through the grades and the success rate, you'd know which areas you need to focus on again. So rather than going through the entire paper or trying to revise the answer plans of the entire paper, you can only focus on task 1 and task 3, because that's where your success rate is not up to par. And at the very end, a set of general comments are also highlighted with the intention of further improving the quality of your answers. And under the premium package, you'd get your hands on the answer plans of all 5 mocks. So what are these answer plans? These answer plans are based on the suggested answers, and these are actually summaries of the answer plans. So usually what you have to do is after purchasing mocks from a certain service provider, you have to go through the suggested answer, and based on the suggested answer, it's best practice if you develop answer plans or answer summaries. So we do not want you guys to do it, because we consider it to be a waste of time. Instead, we have done it for you. So if you go for the premium package, you will get your answer summaries as well. So closer to the exam, when all the other students are scrambling to find time, you will be simply going through these answer plans, thereby revising theory as well as improving your application skills, and you'd improve your answer structuring or answer planning techniques as well. So that's there. And on top of that, you'd have access to master classes, where in these master classes, we are explaining the answers, the questions and answers of each task within each of our mocks. So there are 5 mocks, and in each mock there are 3 tasks. So 3 into 5, 15 master classes are accessible. They have already been recorded, so you can access all these things via our website itself. So by watching each of these master classes, what you can do is you can learn theory, at the same time improve your application skills. So we do not believe in teaching you guys theory and teaching you guys theory in a general sense. Rather than that, what we are doing is we have inculcated the teaching based on the mocks, because included the teaching aspects into our mocks. Why? Because when developing the 5 mock exams, we have ensured that the entire syllabus is covered. So the SCS syllabus comprises mainly of E3 type of questions, and second comes the P3 type of questions, and there's just 15% of weightage when it comes to your F3 syllabus. So all these areas have been covered via our mock exams. So when I'm explaining the questions and answers of the mock exams, I'm teaching you guys theory as well as application skills. So you can get 2 things done by watching these master classes. And you will have access to the tutor-led webinars and the workshops as well if you go for the premium package. And this comes with a monthly installment option. So the price of the package is £550, but you can pay it in 3 monthly installments. The first installment is £99, and the remaining 2 installments of £225 each can be paid in the following 2 months. And this comes with, the premium package comes with a pass guarantee. So let me talk about what this pass guarantee is about. If you purchase the premium package and end up failing your exam, you will gain access to the same material in the subsequent session free of charge. But there's only one single condition. The condition being you have to attempt all 5 mock exams via the exam platform. So if you attempt all 5 mocks via the exam platform under exam conditions, there's absolutely no chance for you guys to fail the exam. That's the pass guarantee which we are providing. And I also invite you guys to access the study plan. According to the study plan, we are in week number 2. We have already completed the first task, which is to attend the webinar pertaining to answering technique. And within this week, you are supposed to watch the 4 pre-scene analysis videos, refer to the annotated pre-scene, and refer to the industry and financial analysis slides. Okay. And from week 3 onwards, you are supposed to start attempt or commence or start attempting a mock per week. And during the last week, which is leading up to your exam, you are not supposed to attempt any mock exams, not supposed to go through any study material. Instead, you are simply supposed to refer to the answer plans pertaining to mocks 1 to 5. So when you are going through these answer plans, you will be revising theory as well as improving your answer structuring and application skills as well. Okay, so hope you'd stick to our study plan. All right, so having said that, let me take you through the mini mock. And based on this mini mock, I will be explaining the answering as well as time management techniques. Okay, so let me take you through the entire or read through the entire mock so that you understand what is highlighted within this scenario. So we are within the student dashboard of TCS. So as you can see, this comes under mocks. So section number 1, the time allocation is 60 minutes. You receive the following email from Rasim Hamid, the CFO. So the subject goes as autonomous vehicles, governance, and sustainability. The board commissioned a special report to evaluate the potential costs and benefits of incorporating autonomous delivery vehicles into Daistruk's fleet. So this in the first sentence itself, it highlights what this requirement or what this scenario is about. So Daistruk, which is a 3PL, is trying to incorporate autonomous delivery vehicles into its fleet. The report revealed that this move would offer substantial cost advantages and disrupt existing market dynamics. Furthermore, the use of cleaner fuels by these vehicles would make them more energy efficient and environmentally friendly than the current fleet. Financial analysts have also indicated that the company's revenues and beta will likely increase in the future due to the cost efficiencies gained and rising demand for environmentally conscious logistics operations. So within this scenario, there are certain benefits highlighted pertaining to Daistruk moving into autonomous delivery vehicles. So let's look at the requirement. Explain the financial analyst's comment with regards to Daistruk adopting autonomous vehicles within its logistics operations. So although so much of information is provided in the requirement, they are only concerned about the comments made by the financial analyst. So what is the financial analyst telling us? Financial analysts have also indicated that the company's revenues and beta will likely increase in the future. So you have to talk about how this initiative leads to revenue increments in the future and how this initiative leads to an increased beta due to cost efficiencies gained and rising demand for environmentally conscious logistics operations. So explain the financial analyst's comment with regards to Daistruk adopting autonomous vehicles within its logistics operations. Okay, so what are you supposed to do first? So as I told you earlier, you are supposed to read the requirement, and I said it's better if you can reiterate the requirement in a shortened version or shortened format so that you can easily refer back to your own wording or the requirement which you have worded in your by yourself. You can always refer back to it and easily understand what you are supposed to do. So rather than going through this entire requirement, it's better to write it, shorten it, and write it in your own terms. Okay, so FA's comments. And I said before developing your answer plan, you need to look at the mark allocation based on the weightages provided. So the weightage for the first subtask is 25%. So 25% of 50 marks is 12.5 marks. So 12.5 marks are allocated for your first requirement. Right. So you have reiterated the requirement in your own words. And after doing that, what are you supposed to do? Determine the headings. Okay. So the first heading goes as financial analyst's comment, which is in bold and underline format. And for the remaining two requirements, I've come up with different main headings, which are also in bold and underline format. So you have come up with the main heading, which is FA's comments. And the second part is to include subheadings if needed. And when developing your answer structure, stick to bullet points. Okay, keep it simple. I'm not asking you guys to type the fully fledged answer. Instead, you are supposed to allocate something like 25 to 30 minutes and develop an answer structure. So keep it simple so that you can easily understand what it is. You can spend, you need to spend a lot of time on thinking and a lesser amount of time on typing the answer plan. So that's exactly why I want you guys to keep it simple. So this is typically what an answer plan should look like. So as you can see, it's short. It does not comprise of different paragraphs, and there are certain bullet points. I've actually utilized bullet points in the entire answer plan. So it's better to stick to a similar approach, because once you spend some time and develop an answer plan, when it comes to typing, you're not supposed to think. Instead, it's just a matter of expanding the points which you have highlighted within the answer plan. Okay, so what is the first requirement? To evaluate the financial analyst's comment. So first things first, talking about what we are trying to do, this is a diversification which the company is pursuing. So this can be considered as a related diversification, because we are already a 3PL, and as a 3PL we are involved with logistics, and we are trying to include or introduce autonomous vehicles within our logistics operations. So this is considered as a related diversification, and as per the financial analysts, it will lead to increased cash flows. So when cash flows increases, what can we do? We can pay higher dividends to our shareholders. So when we pay higher dividends to shareholders, shareholders will be satisfied. When shareholders are satisfied, more and more people will try to invest in the company, and our share price will increase into the future. Okay. And according to the financial analysts, it leads to a situation where our profits will increase. And again, when profitability increases, the share price will increase, because when profits increases, definitely the share price will keep on increasing. Okay. However, although these benefits are there, initially when we are pursuing this related diversification, it's going to be costly, because we have to invest or make significant investments in introducing autonomous vehicles. We'd have to either purchase these vehicles or lease these vehicles out. In either case, there's going to be a high cost. However, in the long run, although initially we'd have to spend a lot of money, in the long run, the costs will decrease. Why? Because adoption of these, or introducing these autonomous vehicles within logistics operations will increase operational efficiencies. So how do I know this? This was highlighted within the scenario. Okay. And on top of that, we have to pay salaries to drivers, which is a significant portion of our operating costs. But these operating costs can be decreased significantly because we won't need any drivers in the future if we keep on using autonomous vehicles. And this will also lead to additional revenues because we are opening up towards a new customer segment, especially thinking about environmentally conscious customers. Nowadays, most customers are thinking about the carbon footprint of businesses. So if we go for this technology, then definitely our carbon footprint will improve. With that, environmentally conscious customers will keep utilizing our services, which will generate further revenues in the future. However, we need to monitor additional operational costs when we are pursuing carbon goals. When we are trying to reduce carbon emissions. Definitely, just because we introduce autonomous vehicles, our carbon emissions will not decrease significantly. We'd have to focus on changing our logistics operations as well. So all these things will lead to process improvements, and these process improvements will lead to additional operational costs. And these financial analysts are also talking about the beta increasing. So whenever there is a mention about the beta of the company, it's prudent for you guys to mention the current beta, which shows that you have gone through the pre-seed and you know what happens within the company. And for this, you get marks. Okay. So the current beta is 1.27, and which indicates that the company is attracting risk positive investors, because if, as you would have learned under F3, if the beta is above 1, then the shares are the shares of the company are supposed to be a bit risky. Okay, based when you compare the share price to the other competitors within the industry, if the beta is above 1, then it's supposed to be a bit risky. So our beta is 1.27, which indicates that we are attracting investors who has a positive attitude towards risks. If not, they will not invest on a company which has a beta which is above 1. And if we pursue this investment, the beta is going to increase further, which indicates that the volatility of the shares will increase, which in turn increases the risk factor of our business. So in the short term, because of this beta increasing, in the short term, share prices will dip for sure, because when beta increases, certain out of all the investors, certain investors will think twice before reinvesting on the business. If they see that the business is taking up too much risks, they'll end up shorting the share or selling their shares. So when they sell their shares, definitely in the short term, the share price will dip, and this leads to an increased cost of equity, because when share price decreases, usually the company will have to pay higher dividends to satisfy shareholders. So as you know, shareholders look for two types of returns. There are a set of shareholders who would invest in a company and look for a dividend, and there are another set of shareholders who would purchase a share for something like £10 today, and they'll try to sell the share for £15 next year. So they are interested about the share price. So when the share price decreases, in order to keep the shareholders happy, what a typical company does is they will pay higher dividends, which in turn will increase the cost of equity of the company. Although these short-term dips in share price as well as the increase in cost of equity can be expected, in the long term, the risk will reduce, because the company, if they invest or if they pursue this investment, the company is the company will experience better profitability and better cash flows or higher cash flows. So when profits and cash flows increases in the future, the beta value will keep decreasing, because when there's enough profitability and when there's a lot of cash within a business, definitely the risk factor will decrease. With that, the beta will decrease, and this in turn will help us retain our existing shareholders within the company. Okay, so that's the answer for the first task. You were supposed to analyze the FA's comments. That's exactly what I've done here. So as you can see, rather than typing the fully fledged answer straight away, spend some time to think, plan your answer properly, try to figure out how pre-seen information can be brought into the answer. That's exactly what I've done in here by talking about the current beta level. So likewise, you need to think about how you can relate to the company as much as possible, because if you do, then you'd get extremely good marks. So that's the answer plan for the first task, first subtask rather. Then moving on to the second subtask, further, our operations director has highlighted the fact that the workload of board members has increased significantly due to the planned diversification. He has thus suggested that it is prudent to increase salaries of all executive directors. So our operations director is saying that the responsibilities of all board members had increased because of this initiative. With that, the operations director is asking for increased salaries for all board members. You are supposed to evaluate the operations director's suggestion with regards to salary increments. So what are you supposed to do? Reiterate the requirement in your own words in a shortened format, director's salaries. So keep it simple so that you can always, whilst developing the answer plan, you can always refer back to this and easily understand what you are supposed to do. So based on the next step is understanding how many marks are allocated. So based on the weightage provided, which is 25%, 12.5 marks are allocated for the second subtask. Okay, so the next step is to develop a main heading, which goes as director salaries, which is in bold and underlined format. That's exactly what you can see here. Okay, and let's look at whether it's legitimate for the operations director to ask for increased salaries. So I'm starting the answer by suggesting that it is legitimate for the directors to ask for higher salaries, legitimate for directors to request higher salaries. Why? Because definitely there will be a significant increase in workload due to the increased business risk. So as per the comments made by the financial analysts, if we pursue this investment or this diversification, the beta is going to increase. So when the beta increases, it in turn indicates that the risk factor or the riskiness of the business increases. When the risk factor or the riskiness increases, the board members need to intervene and try to manage this risk. Because as you have learned under P3, one of the main responsibilities of the board members is with regards to management of risks. That's one of their main responsibilities. So if the beta is increasing, the directors will have to work smarter and harder to manage these increased risks, because we have not utilized autonomous vehicles so far. So when we introduce autonomous vehicles, definitely we will have to face operational risks. And if this initiative or this diversification, if it becomes a flop, it leads to financial risks as well. So all these different types of risks, additional risks, will need to be managed by our board members. So this leads to an increased workload. Okay, so I'm saying that what these guys are saying is legitimate. And although this is legitimate, when it comes to deciding their salaries, directors should not be involved in the decision to avoid conflict of interest, because as you would have seen, this falls under corporate governance under the E3 and P3 syllabuses. I hope you would have heard about companies such as Enron and WorldCom. These directors within these companies, they paid higher salaries to themselves. There was nobody to look after the interests of shareholders. Instead, the directors kept on paying themselves bonuses and higher salaries on an annual basis. And 2 or 3 years down the line, these big companies were declared bankrupt. Okay, so in order to avoid such undue conflict of interest, the best thing for us to do is, if we are going for a salary increase for the directors should not be involved in the decision making process. Instead, the new salaries should be set or determined by the remuneration committee. So if you had gone through your E3 and P3 syllabuses, if you had covered corporate governance, then you'd know what I'm talking about. So as you know, typically within a board, there needs to be committees. So one such committee is the remuneration committee. What is the main responsibility of the remuneration committee? As the name suggests, the remuneration committee should be involved with setting the salaries and determining the bonuses paid to each and every director. The directors should not themselves dictate how much of a salary or bonus they should receive. Instead, it should be handled by the remuneration committee. Okay, and within the remuneration committee, non-executive directors should dominate. And as per the information provided within the precede, we conform to this guideline, because if you consider the remuneration committee of Daistruk, the non-executive directors are dominating. Okay, so everything looks good with regards to the composition of the remuneration committee. So remember these points. Within the remuneration committee, more than 50% of the participants should be non-executive directors. Why non-executive directors? Because the non-executive directors are there to represent shareholder interests at board level. Because if we allow board members to run the company, they will only think about their own interests, forgetting about the other shareholders. So in order to ensure that directors always think about the needs of shareholders, the interests of shareholders, we have appointed non-executive directors. And these non-executive directors are supposed to provide an independent view about the long-term running of the company. And if there are any shortcomings with regards to how the directors are running the company, the non-executive directors carry the right to communicate it to shareholders and keep the shareholders informed so that shareholders can take appropriate action. Maybe if a certain set of directors are involved with fraudulent activities, or if they are, misusing shareholder funds, then the shareholders can call for a general meeting and get rid of these type of directors. Okay, so that's the main responsibility of the non-executive of a non-executive director. So when forming the remuneration committee, it's prudent to have more than 50% of the composition or the participants to be non-executive directors. And with regards to board responsibilities increasing, the remuneration committee should actually, when determining whether to pay higher salaries or not, or if we decide to pay higher salaries, we need to decide by how much we need to increase salaries. So the remuneration committee should benchmark with salaries paid by other 3PLs. So the remuneration committee, before determining or finalizing the salary increments, what they need to do is they have to do their own research and figure out what the other directors who perform within other 3PLs similar to us, how much these guys are getting. So our closest competitor is Carry. So our remuneration committee can, conduct their own research and find out how much the directors at Carry are receiving. Okay, so the objective should be to, when paying salaries to directors, the objective should be to attract and retain capable directors. So if you are to attract and retain, properly experienced directors, then we'd have to pay competitive salaries. So that's exactly why I'm suggesting that it's better to, do our own research and figure out what the other companies are paying their directors. And although this is the case, although we are supposed to pay a remuneration which helps us attract and retain capable directors, salaries should not be excessive. Okay, so that's exactly why the remuneration committee is supposed to handle this aspect when it comes to remuneration. And with the responsibilities of board members increasing, we might have to appoint a new board member, because as per the information provided in the preceding document, there's no such director which has some type of an experience with regards to dealing with autonomous vehicles. So if we go ahead with this diversification, definitely we might have to appoint a new director. And if we are appointing a new director, the directors themselves should not be involved in the process. Instead, the nomination committee should handle it. And when you look at the composition of the nomination committee, again, non-executive director should dominate the nomination committee. And as per the information provided in the pre-scene, we do not conform to this guideline. So as you can see, I told you, when developing an answer plan, you are thinking about all elements which you need to consider. So this is a question which is a majority, a major portion of this question has everything to do with corporate governance. And there's a bit about the beta factor coming in. Combined beta comes under the F3 syllabus combined with P3. So there's a bit of P3, F3, and a majority of E3 related syllabus content tested within this question. And on top of that, as you can see, when you spend some time to develop appropriate answer plans, you can think and figure out what type of information you need to bring in from the pre-scene. So I've done that twice. I've talked about the remuneration committee of Daistruk, and I've spoken about the nomination committee of Daistruk as well. Okay, for that you get marks for application. Okay, so that's subtask B. Moving on to subtask C. On an unrelated matter, I'm sharing an article which was published on Environmental Watch, one of the most popular weekly magazines in Roundland. Please refer to the attachment. So let's go through the reference material. The logistics industry, a silent polluter. Okay. At the outset, we can understand that this article has nothing good, has nothing to say, nothing good to say about the logistics industry. The logistics industry can have a significant impact on the environment and contribute to pollution in various ways. Here are some examples. So there are emissions in transportation. There is a lot of wastage with regards to packaging, because within the logistics industry, cardboard boxes, plastic wrap, as well as pallets are used. All these things are considered as wastage, and there's a lot of energy consumption as well. And most logistics services providers are carrying out their logistics services without focusing on renewable energy sources. They depend on non-renewable energy sources such as coal and natural gas. And there's a lot of chemical pollution happening within this industry, because the logistic industry, especially 3PLs, deal with hazardous material. So there could be chemicals and fuels which leads to chemical pollution. And there's a lot of noise pollution as well, because we utilize a lot of trucks as well as delivery vehicles. So these issues have been highlighted by many leading environmentalists and is gaining a lot of traction. Environmentalists stated that leaders within the logistics industry such as Daistruk and Carry are to be blamed. Okay, this is problematic because within this article itself, our name has been mentioned as one of the largest polluters. Okay, so this is mentioned by the environmentalists. The Roundlandian government, so let's look at what the government is telling us. The Roundlandian government is also planning to impose strict emission laws on the industry, given the pressure created by these environmentalists, at the same time sticking to its net zero goals. So the government is interested about what happens within this industry as well, especially given the fact that the environmentalists are raising their concerns about the type of pollution which occurs within this industry. So what is your requirement? Hope you can provide recommendations with reasons describing the strategy which Daistruk needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. So in order to minimize the impact of carbon loss, what are we supposed to do? Okay, so the first step is to come up with the main heading in your own terms. managing impact of carbon loss. So keep it simple so that you can easily understand. Okay, managing impact of carbon loss. That's exactly what you can see here as the main heading, managing impact of carbon loss. Then, the second step is to figure out the mark allocation based on the weightage provided. The weightage is 50%, which indicates that 25 marks are allocated for this area. Okay, so how are you supposed to manage the impact of carbon loss? So according to the information provided, there are various different stakeholders who are affected if these carbon laws are passed. Okay, so first things first, we have to identify the main stakeholders who are affected and try to figure out how these stakeholders can be managed. Okay, so I'm talking about the environmentalists first. So when thinking about managing stakeholders, the Mendelov matrix needs to be utilized, which comes under the E3 syllabus. So according to the Mendelov matrix, we have to be considerate about the level of interest and power of each and every stakeholder. So the environmentalists, as per the information provided, appears to have a high level of interest because they are raising their concerns about the industry. However, they have a low level of power. Okay, although they have a low level of power at the moment, they can harness the power of the government. The government is a powerful entity. And if these environmentalists get together and form a union, and if they pressurize the government, then the government's level of interest will increase, which in turn will affect us negatively. So it's better not to negotiate with these environmentalists directly because it might lead to bad publicity. The environmentalists could say that Daistruk approached them with the intention of persuading them, or they can also say, they can always say that Daistruk threatened them or tried to bribe them. So in order to avoid all these type of complexities or bad publicity, it's better not to negotiate directly with these guys, especially given the fact that these guys do not have a lot of power. So rather than negotiating directly, it's wise for us to use media to engage, thereby developing our own narrative about the issue. Okay, then how are we supposed to deal with the government? So usually any government has a high level of power yet a low level of interest. However, according to the situation, the government's level of interest is high. Why am I saying it? Because the government is saying, according to the information provided in the scenario, let me take you to that area. According to the information provided, the government is also planning to impose strict emission laws on the industry, given the pressure created by these environmentalists, at the same time sticking to its net zero goals. So usually, when it comes to businesses, governments are not too interested about them. They are only interested about the taxes paid by businesses. However, as per the scenario, the government has a high level of interest. So this, the government thus, according to the Mendelov matrix, had become key players. So we need to treat them as such. So we have to approach the government and explain to them that the laws affect other stakeholders adversely as well, not just us, but other stakeholders will be adversely affected. And it's better to engage directly with the government and carry out negotiations. Unlike the environmentalists, given the fact that the government has a high level of power, it's better to engage directly and negotiate with them. And we can also think about how we can change the mindset of the government or the government officials. So when doing this, we can use the past political affiliations of our non-executive chairperson. You get marks for bringing in information from the pre-scene. So if you had gone through the pre-scene document properly, you'd understand or you'd remember that the non-executive chair has past political affiliations. So that's exactly what is highlighted here within the answer plan. And when conducting negotiations with the government, we have to highlight the fact that we believe in sustainability, which is highlighted within the vision statement of Daistruk. Again, you get marks for pre-scene application because I've mentioned about the vision statement. And we can also promise the government that we are ready to change our internal dynamics if needed, if this new law is passed. And we have to always show that we have a positive attitude towards adhering to government regulations whenever they change. Okay. And what type of other major stakeholders are affected by this new law? Shipping companies and airlines. We work directly with shipping companies and airlines. So it's better to collaborate with the shipping companies and airlines and try to reduce emissions in transportation, because if we do, we can always communicate with the government and tell them, look here, we were able to get in touch with shipping companies and airlines, and we worked out processes which leads to a reduced level of carbon emissions. If we really achieve these type of carbon emissions, definitely we'll be in the good books of the government. And we can always ask these shipping companies and airlines to support us with regards to changing the law. So rather than us trying to negotiate with the government on our own, we can also include the heads of the shipping companies and airlines in the negotiation process, which will further increase our level of power. And we can always utilize lobbying. When lobbying, we have to highlight the fact that we have to save livelihoods of employees and shareholders, because there are a multitude of employees and shareholders who are living off this industry. And although all these things can be done, the lobbying should not be too excessive, because if we try to pressurize the government too much, then they'll override or they'll take decisions which is not too good for us. And on top of that, if we go for excessive lobbying, our ethical behavior can be questioned as well. And thinking about our competitor Carry, why am I thinking about or mentioning about our competitor? Because Carry's name is mentioned within the newspaper article as well. So these guys have a high level of interest just like us with regards to this law. So if both companies, us and Carry, get together, and if we can work together and try to negotiate with the government, then our level of power increases. So I'm highlighting or suggesting the fact that we should work hand in hand with Carry as well as shipping companies and airlines when conducting negotiations with the government. So as general comments at the very end, I've mentioned that it's better to conduct our own internal investigation to figure out whether the article is factual or not. If the article is factual, we have to accept fault publicly without keeping mum about it. And also, we have to inform about steps which we are trying to adhere to in order to mitigate these problems. And these all this information should be communicated with our stakeholders, different stakeholders via media and also via our website. Okay. So that's the answer for the third subtask. You were supposed to provide recommendations describing the strategy which Daistruk needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. So I've mentioned how you are supposed to do it, how you are supposed to deal with the environmentalists, the government, as well as what type of stakeholders we'd have to get together or connect with when trying to influence the government. And at the very end, I've also recommended to conduct an internal investigation to figure out whether the newspaper article highlights factual information. And I've also mentioned strategies which we need to adhere to if we find out that the newspaper article is factual. Okay, so as you can see, there's a good mix of theoretical knowledge tested, and the examiner is also trying to figure out whether you are in a position to implement this theoretical knowledge in a practical sense. And that's exactly what I've highlighted. So I was talking about master classes, 15 master classes. In each of these master classes, I will be taking you through on a task by task basis, thereby taking you through the questions and answers or explaining the logic behind the answers. And on top of that, teaching you theory as well as teaching you application skills. All right. So that's how you are supposed to, utilize your or come up with, develop your own answer plan. So, you have to keep on practicing these things. Just because you know answering and time management technique after this webinar, I hope you understood what you are supposed to do with regards to developing answer plans and how you are supposed to manage your time. Just because you know these techniques, you cannot implement them at the real exam without practicing them. So the best way to practice these answer planning and time management techniques is when attempting the 5 mock exams. So if you attempt all 5 mock exams, you'll be covering the entire syllabus which is relevant for the SCS syllabus, or the SCS exam rather. And on top of that, you will be practicing answer planning and time management techniques 15 times over. So once you do it 15 times, by the time you are attempting mock number 3, you would have championed the answer planning and time management technique. And at the real exam, you can easily manage your time. You'd actually encounter a situation where you have something like 5 minutes at the end of each task. You will have 5 minutes of additional time at your disposal. So, when all the other students are trying to figure out how to manage their time, how to come up with high quality answers, you have practiced these things before. So once you have practiced these things, easily you can implement these techniques and end up passing the exam. So that's exactly what our pass rate tells us. We are happy to say that we achieved a 96% pass rate for the February session. And two of our students got top 5 rankings. This student got the 4th rank in India, all India 4th rank, and there's another student who got the 5th rank as well. So these guys, how they achieve these ranks is by adhering to the answer planning and time management techniques, practicing these techniques over and over when attempting their mock exams. And on top of that, these guys stuck to the study plan. So when you stick to the study plan, what happens is, closer to the exam, you will be relaxing. And when you have a relaxed mindset, when you have an open mind, then the type of answers which you provide, the type of recommendations which you provide will improve significantly. So as you would have seen, when taking you through the answers are extremely practical, but you need to spend some time to come up with these type of answers, thinking about different stakeholders, looking into different angles. So for that, you need some type of practice. So if you keep on practicing the answer planning techniques, time management techniques, then if you go through the answer plans which we have provided, then definitely you can pass your exam comfortably. And I also want to remind about the 50% discount which we are offering on the first installment of the premium package. So I told you that the first installment is £99, but if you invest on the premium package in the within the coming week, you will get a 50% discount on the first installment, thereby saving £50. And utilize the discount code SCSP50 in the checkout area in order to claim this 50% discount. All right, any questions, guys? I hope you guys understood the answer planning technique. Any questions, any doubts? I'm going to pause the recording. All right, seems like there aren't any questions. So I'm going to conclude the session. So if you want to contact us, you can drop us a message via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com, or you can email us via info@study@tcs.com, or WhatsApp us on this WhatsApp number. And I hope you guys are part of the WhatsApp group. If not, simply go on to our website, go to the SCS page, and at the very end, click on this button to join the tutor-led SCS WhatsApp discussion forum. Okay, so, and I invite you guys to follow us on our social media handles as well, especially the TikTok page, because we have developed a set of videos, TikTok videos, which summarizes the entire pre-scene in 3 videos. Within 9 to 10 minutes, the entire pre-scene has been summarized. So on a daily basis, go through these videos so that you keep yourselves constantly reminding about the most important points which you need to remember. And this is going to be extremely beneficial for you at the exam, because you can bring in these points easily and include them within your answer plans, include them within your answers, so that you gain marks for application. And having said that, it brings us to the end of tonight's webinar. Thank you very much for joining in. I hope you guys gained something out of this session. And let me remind you about the third webinar, which is happening on the 22nd of July. That is the week after next. So I hope you guys will join that as well. And if you had missed out on the first webinar, you can access the recorded version, or if you joined this webinar halfway through, access the recorded version, which can be found under the free content under study@tcs.com. So thank you very much. Good night and take care.